Excited about today's show. I think we are in episode 11 of the Marketing That Grows Your Business show. We have a super special guest. He's kind of a big deal today. We're going to be joined by my friend Chris Ducker. Chris is incredible, but today but I want you guys to experience that honestly. But we're going to be talking about how you can build a profitable personal brand. We're really going to zero in on how you can create and market yourself, whether you work for yourself or you work for a company. I think you're going to absolutely find a lot of value in today's show. So as you guys are coming in, just give me a shout out. Where in the world are you? And how in the world are you? And how was your Easter weekend? Boy, that was about 3 questions there. But like I say, as you're coming in, just give me a shout out. Love to hear where you are. Let me gather my stuff here. I had it all together and kind of spread it out as I was chatting. But as always, on all of our shows, we try to do a few giveaways, and we have some. So hello, Thalanda from Portland, Oregon. Thank you for showing up so often. You're on a lot of my shows, and I really appreciate you. As with all of our shows, we do some giveaways, and we have the ones that we normally do, which is the little webcam, which keeps people from spying on you. It's a little cover, so that's one of our giveaways today. Another is the Marketing That Grows Your Business selfie light. It goes on the top of your phone. Amazing. If you don't have one of these, you're going to need one. Hey, Monica from Switzerland. And we're also giving away we're going to choose 3 winners of oh goodness. My brain's operating faster than my mouth today, or vice versa, one of the two. Anyway, but we're going to pick 3 winners in giving away easel.com. Easel is our sponsor for today's show. And if you have not used Easel before, you're going to love it. It is similar in many respects to Canva. If you've heard of that, often used graphic design tool called Canva. But Easel, I think, is a step up because of the quality of their templates. They have graphic designers on hand that create a lot of their visual content, and you are going to love their content. So I would definitely check them out. 3 winners today for 3 months of easel.com. And I also wanted to bless somebody today with a copy of Chris Ducker's latest book. And it's let me pull that up. Let me broaden my screen here to make sure I get it exactly right. The Rise of the Youpreneur. Chris has built an amazing brand around the concept of a personal brand. And I want to really pick his brain a little bit on how he started down this road in just a moment. Feel free to drop in your questions as we go, because, we're here to give you guys value, and we definitely want you to have an opportunity to ask your questions. So definitely drop them in as you go. The way we choose the winners around here for the prizes that I just outlined is, if you have an aha moment, please drop in your aha down in the little comment area below with hashtag aha, and we will choose winners like that. So definitely make sure that you pop in your aha moments. All right, so let me introduce you and give a huge big welcome to my friend Chris Ducker. Now, Chris is, as I said, he's known for personal branding for sure, but the way that I first had a touch point with Chris was through his virtual business. He has a virtual freedom business. I'm sorry, his first book was Virtual Freedom. His second book was The Rise of the Youpreneur, but he also has a VA business in the Philippines, and that's my first touch point with him. But he is so many things. He's lived in the Philippines lived there for 17 years. He has an in-house team of over 450 full-time employees there. An incredible, amazing business. He recently moved back to the UK. He's also very well known for his in-person event, which is called the Youpreneur Summit. It's in London, England, each and every year. It's going to be held in November. Fingers crossed that it is still going to be held this coming November. But within the chaos of where we are in the world, we're just going to have to see how that works out. But right now, it's still on the books. All right. So you guys put your hands together and give a big old welcome to Chris.
Yay. Hello, darling. How are you?
I'm great.
It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here.
Very good indeed. You know, it never ceases to amaze me where I get the opportunity to speak with, I don't feel like I'm self-isolating at all. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been self-isolating for about a decade.
Right?
A decade pretty much already. Yeah. I'm just hanging out with friends still. This is basically what I do every day.
Well, I think for me, because similar to you, I've owned and operated an online business and had a home office for years. So that piece of it is not any different. But I think the fact that I can't do things messes with me. Like, there would be days I would never leave the house. But because now I can't leave the house, I think, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm going somewhere," I'm like, "Wait on me, I'm going too." Whereas before, "Oh, you're just going to Target? Okay, grab whatever," But now it's like, "Oh yeah, I need to go." So it's the fact that
I'm a big fan of Target. I want to give Target a shout out actually, because a few years ago I had my first ever Target experience. And they were amazing on Twitter, and they reached out to me. There was a video that went up of me spinning down the aisles on a trolley and all the rest of it. And Target does social media right. They're amazing. Well, they did. I don't know. It was a few years ago. Let's find out, right? Yeah. But they were. Right. It's funny what you say though in regards to the whole. I would go days without leaving the house, and now that I can't, I want to escape. And I think that's the reactive mind of ourselves working. And as I keep saying to all of our community members, you've got two options here. You can be reactive or you can be proactive, right? That's, they're the two big, opportunities right now. You can be reactive and kind of take on that sort of that mindset of, oh, I've got to do whatever society is telling me to do, or what my competitors are potentially doing. But if you're proactive in the way that you're running your business, staying in touch with your customers, staying in touch with the people that matter most, being as proactive as you can, getting up in the morning, stretching, working out, whatever you got to do to just stay kind of positive and everything. I think for me, that's been the biggest thing that I've picked up more than anything else, is people are falling into one of those two camps. They're either being reactive or they're being proactive. The messy middle, as our good friend Michael Hyatt says, isn't actually that apparent. It's one or the other, for me anyway, right now.
I think you're exactly right. It's such a great way of articulating that, because you'll see some people who are out there with that positive message, trying to show up via voice, just a connection. I think people are searching very hard right now for connection, and it's just their. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it's the same. Like, right? It's not like social media is like cut off or any of that, but it just goes back to our human nature.
I would say that social media has actually gotten much more social again.
Yes.
If I may say so, right? Like it's really become, it's a social environment again. People are actually talking about stuff other than just talking to each other. And that's been nice to see. It's been nice to see.
And such a change, because it had become, in my opinion, so toxic, so divided with all the craziness that preceded this craziness. But so let me just start picking your brain a little, if you don't mind, on this whole personal branding piece. So how did you first get into the personal branding? Like, I know you have your virtual business, a virtual assistant business. But how did you make that shift? And then, well, let me ask you that question first, because that begs another. But.
Yeah. So it wasn't really necessarily a shift. I think I had started to pivot a little bit even before Virtual Freedom came out. So Virtual Staff Finder, which is our VA company, it's a recruitment company fundamentally, that we bridge the gap between busy entrepreneur and experienced VA in the Philippines. So if you are one of these and you want one of those, you come to us and we find the people for you. So we opened the doors to that business almost 10 years ago, actually. It was in August of 2010. And, you know, I was quite happy just sort of focused on creating content around virtual assistants and building remote teams. I've been doing it for many years. I've been in the outsourcing business for 15 years now. So it was very much water off a duck's back, right? To use a common analogy. And it was just really easy for me to talk about what I'd been doing for so long already. And then the book offer came along, and that was in late 2012. Now, because I went traditional with that first book, it took literally 18 months to get it out into the world. But through the course of 2013, I was speaking a lot, I was traveling a lot, while at the same time, obviously, writing the book on a deadline. And then by the time the book came out, I was already very heavily invested in my personal brand myself. I was blogging under my personal brand. I was vlogging. I was podcasting, all under my personal brand of chrisducker.com. And so it was already beginning. The pivot, so to speak, was already beginning. But I have done my best, my very best, at making that pivot and making the most of that pivot from a coaching perspective. That's truly what excites me the most, is coaching other entrepreneurs. And we do that now under the banner of Youpreneur over at youpreneur.com. But I've done my very, very best at trying to keep one leg in that VA camp, because we do still own the business. We do still operate the business. It is an almost 7-figure annual revenue company on its own, and it serves thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs all around the world every single year. So I've been very, very kind of, should we say, very, very focused on not letting any part of that and what that means to our business as a whole disappear, while at the very same time, and this is the power of the personal brand, pivoting into other things that interest me, turn me on, get me excited, et cetera, et cetera. And that just happens to be more talking about personal brand business building than it does building virtual teams. And so, I think we've done a pretty good job at being able to maintain both brands pretty much on their own, with me as a personal brand very firmly in the middle. I'd like to think we've done a good job anyway.
Yeah, I've often said that I didn't necessarily start out with the concept of, hey, I'm going to be a personal brand. It just kind of evolved, and now I'm probably steps behind you on the concept of how do I spin that off into another brand. I'm getting ready to launch another brand, and so I agree with you wholeheartedly. You started with Virtual Staff Finders. By the way, if because we are obviously, there's so many entrepreneurs with us today. If you are, like Chris said, you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for, help, of someone in the Philippines that could help you, virtualstafffinders.com is a great resource. I've hired several people.
Staff Finder, no S.
Yes.
Staff
Virtual
Finder.
Staff Finders. Yes.
That's okay. I don't want you going any of those dodgy websites that claim to be, I don't know about you, I'm getting imitators left and right at the moment. It's crazy. So virtualstafffinder.com, that's where we're at.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for correcting that. And we'll drop it into the comments too, just so you guys have the right link. But I think you've done a really great. So Paul is saying, pivoting. Pivoting seems to be the word of the day right now, because a lot of people are being forced to pivot. Yeah. So when you started with Youpreneur, I know your heart has shifted. It's been an evolution, which always is what happens. You start with one thing, you get that up and running, and maybe to your point, you leveraged your personal brand, and then you started Youpreneur. So what really took you in that direction? Because Youpreneur obviously is your coaching side, and I know your heart is very focused in that place. You're really enjoying that part of your business right now.
Well, I think what it is, at the very core of what I enjoy doing as a business owner, and I'm a big believer that if you own your own business, you should genuinely enjoy what you do day to day. Otherwise, you've just got another job where you are also your boss at the same time, right? So at the very core of what I truly enjoy doing, it is ultimately just serving fellow entrepreneurs and providing solutions to their problems, regardless of what that is, whether it be virtual staffing problems, whether it be monetization problems, or maybe they've hit a brick wall on that side of the business and they want help in regards to that. Or maybe it's, everything from writing and marketing books and becoming a public speaker and doing all the stuff that we handle inside of Youpreneur with our personal brand clients. The fact is, very core, I just love serving our people. That's what I'm all about more than anything else. The only difference between Youpreneur as a business and Virtual Staff Finder as a business is that Virtual Staff Finder, although that we have all these people working on it, that's on automation for me personally. I've completely removed myself from that business day to day. I'm out. I'm done. I've got management. I've got middle management. And then I've obviously got other employees that all working within that business. And so I don't dislike that business at all. It's a great business and it makes me a lot of money, quite frankly. But the fact of the matter is that I don't need to be in there every single day. And so I've delegated that out and I've removed myself from the business day to day. And that allows me to focus on the stuff that I really, truly do enjoy. And that is spending time with people such as authors, speakers, consultants, content creators, anybody really building a business based around their expertise and their personality, like yourself, for example. You're a Youpreneur. I'm a Youpreneur. Anybody doing that, as far as I'm concerned, one man's opinion, but as far as I'm concerned, is a Youpreneur, right? Gary Vaynerchuk is a Youpreneur. And so I think it's important that we truly honestly just do stuff we really enjoy doing every single day. And for me, it's teaching people how to put the frameworks in place for them to be able to build, market, and monetize a business based around their personal brand. And by doing that also, actually, I truly honestly believe this, you future-proof yourself. Right now, I'm not having any problems at all business-wise in any way, shape, or form because of the fact that I future-proofed myself as a personal brand entrepreneur by developing a number of different revenue streams and opportunities around me. I'm still serving my customers. I'm doing it with, a certain amount of empathy and a certain amount of thanks attached to it, as I always do. And here we are in the middle of a crisis. It's not ultimately affected me all that much. And that's the reason why that future-proofing and that personal branding is very, very important for us nowadays.
Yeah, I totally agree, which was my very next question. Why is a personal brand right now in today's economy so important? I know, and I'm going to circle back to something towards the end as it relates to the personal brand. Why didn't you build out the Youpreneur opportunity? So I don't want to go into that just yet, but I want to see this idea for the community, or all the viewers, and then you yourself. Instead of going and building another brand, why didn't you build out the concept and the coaching under your personal brand? Because that's a question I think is fascinating, and I think a lot of our viewers would like to know that too, perhaps. But that kind of ties into some of my later questions, so I'll seed that for now. Okay. So y'all hang on, because we're going to come back to that. But in today's economy, and I've said this for a long time, that personal brands, in my opinion, level the playing field for those of us who want to have an online business. Whether, and again, I think lots of times people think when they have an online business that it shouldn't revolve around them. So what is the value? If you are going to start a business today, you don't currently have a personal brand, or maybe you do, you just haven't figured out how to leverage it just yet. But I'd really like I'd love your opinion on why now. Why should we have a personal brand right now?
Well, I think, look, the first thing to understand is, if you're doing business as a business owner, whether it's under your own name or whether it's under a brand name, just take this on the chin, as my father would say. You've got a personal brand. Whether you identify with that or not is actually neither here nor there. You've got a personal brand. Your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not around, right? So if Kim isn't at the conference and people are talking about Kim, what they're saying about her, good or bad, is her personal brand, right? If Chris is not at that dinner party or that coffee meeting or that networking event and people are talking about Chris, then obviously whatever they're saying is exactly what Chris is known for. Our reputation is our personal brand. What we are known for by our peers and by other people within the industry as well as outside once they discover us, that's our personal brand. So we all have a personal brand. Every one of us have a personal brand. The only difference is, will we lean into it or will we not lean into it? And right now, I'm a big believer, and I've been saying this for years, Kim, this is not a coronavirus-inspired soapbox moment here. I've been talking about this literally for years and years and years. The first time I ever did my Business of You keynote, I did it at a conference in LA in 2014, and the phrase P2P and people to people was introduced for the first time in that keynote. And the Business of You keynote is all about building a business based on you, based on your experience, your expertise, and your personality, right? But it's not reliant on you. It's about creating a number of different revenue streams, whereas you're being very smart and savvy in the way that you build the business. So it's about having passive digital type of products like courses and downloads and all that sort of type of thing. Maybe there's virtual coaching, maybe there's a membership, maybe it's affiliate marketing. These are all the ways that you can ultimately monetize your personal brand and the following of the people that you attract into your ecosystem, right? So this is where the future proofing comes into play, because when you build the Business of You, it's 100% original. There's only one you. It can't be copied. They can copy your tactics and your strategies and your ideas, but they can't copy the way you deliver it. And you being uniquely and unapologetically you at all times is your number one best asset in the world today, because people truly do want to do business with other people. More so today maybe than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that I hear quite frequently from people, whether they're just getting started and they're trying to figure out, are they a personal brand or are they a business, you know, do they brand a business name? Right after that is something that I think is so important. And a lot of times they'll say, well, everything under the sun has been done. How do I show up different? You know, what would you say to somebody who says, you know, there's nothing new out there, you know, and again, I think the value of a personal brand ties right into that. So for somebody who says, hey, how do I do something that's unique when everything's already been done?
Well, here's the thing. You know, people say that they're right. This is the brutal reality of it. They are right. You know, pretty much everything has been done, particularly in the personal brand business space. But it's not been done in your way, in your style. You know, you and I think, first connected many years ago when we were on Periscope together. We were doing a lot of Periscoping, right? And I remember one time, just out of nowhere, I think I dropped it and you dropped it virtually on the same day, the first time, where we both said, your vibe will attract your tribe. Do you remember this moment, or am I going crazy?
No, I do. And it's so funny because I had seen other people say similar things, right? So I was like, wow, like what's this? I mean, that's a powerful message.
Totally. And you know, and over the years, I've gotten to think about that a little bit more, right? Whereas I truly believe actually your vibe does attract your tribe. Now, I call it nowadays, I've put my own spin on it, and I call it marketing like a magnet. Right? So if you think about a magnet, it attracts and repels at the very same time. So you want to attract the right people into your ecosystem, the right people into your product offerings. But at the very, very same time, you want to repel away those that are not the right type of people for you, your style, your business, et cetera, et cetera. And you know the types of people, on day 29 of a 30-day money-back guarantee, they want their $99 back. I don't need people like that in my business ecosystem. Neither do you or anybody else watching this for that matter. So it's all about creating that opportunity for you to be uniquely you, like I said, and actually very unapologetically at all times as well. Because if there's any smoke and mirrors going on, then that transparency isn't there, that authenticity isn't there. And if we're not being authentic in the way that we're marketing our messages, then obviously we're not going to attract the right type of people into our ecosystem. And this is where the power of the personal brand lies. Because yes, it has all been done before, but it hasn't been done in your way with your style attached to it. And that's what people, like I said, people want to do business with other people. And so that's where the power is right there, man. And this is why I get so fired up when I talk about this, because I see people trying to do Gary V or trying to do, Marie Forleo. Like, no, don't do that. Gary's got his own style just like Marie does. Do you, as Gary would say. Don't copy him. Do it your own way.
So true. And honestly, when I wrote my first book, it was all about authenticity. Will the real you please stand up? Simply because even though we're saying all this, it can be a struggle to figure out who you are, how you want to show up. And to your point, be unapologetically you, like Gary V, for example, very unique brand. He's got colorful language at best. And so to your point, can somebody else come in behind that and try to do the same thing? Well, it would come across as probably being very disingenuous unless that is how you show up in life. That's how he talks.
And I've also seen other people turn up and try and do a Gary V without the colorful language, and it doesn't work.
Right.
Because that is actually such an important part of his personal brand and his style that it just doesn't work, Yeah.
Agreed. So let's talk real quick about why anyone, regardless of whether they have their own business or whether they're working for a company, and hint, hint, any youngsters out there, why should they have a personal brand?
Well, I mean, if anything else, it's just, I think it's just smart. Like, I've got all of my children's domain names registered for like 20 years. Like it's, they can pay me back when they become, rich and famous or whatever. But I'm a big believer, particularly for younger folks, that this actually is probably more important for you guys out there than it is for us older folks, because, the rate at which the world is developing thanks to technology and innovation is unlike anything that we've ever come across before in the history of Western civilization, like plain and simple. And so, being on top of that reputation and being on top of what people are saying about you when you're not around, what you're known for. And by the way, you don't need to be an expert to be known for something. It can also have negative connotations attached to it. Obviously, we don't want that, but you don't need to be an expert to be known for something. You can just be a nice person, a hardworking employee, somebody who shows up on time every day, et cetera, et cetera. You can be a volunteer in your local community and be known for being great at what you're doing there. This isn't always necessarily down to dollars and cents, right? So, I've had the conversation with my older kids about social media and, utilizing it properly. And as you know, my daughter, Chloe, manages my social media and our company's social media. She's 22 years old. She's perfect for that type of role because she lives and breathes internet and bloody TikTok every day, right? Like, what is that even, like, where did TikTok even come from? Just as an idea, right? So it's like, I don't get it, but she does. But she's all, I've had that conversation with her about, not putting anything up there, not sharing anything that you wouldn't want a future employee, or rather a future employer, or even employee for that matter, seeing, or a future partner, or whatever it is. So I think it's very important for the younger generation right now to understand that they do also have a personal brand. It's just called your reputation,
Yeah. My mom used to hammer that into me, mostly probably from a female perspective. Your reputation's all you got, and so I've carried that for years. Like I value my reputation so much, and much of it I'm sure has to do with her telling me that as a teenager. But
Absolutely.
there's also, I think, value in this from the perspective of, if you're working for a company and you build out a personal brand simultaneously, that can be the jump off point for either you having a personal business, a personal brand, and or a jump off point into the next thing. Can you give a couple of examples of people? Like I can think of a couple, like, golly, like obviously, Scott Stratton would be one that comes to mind. But who else can you think of that worked for a company, and then because they had built a name for themselves inside of that company, then that was a jump off point for the next thing for them, and a lucrative jump off point?
Yeah, and I think one person that I can think of, right off the bat is Michael Hyatt, who I know you're friends with, and I am as well. And Michael is a great example, now with an 8-figure personal brand business, 8-figure personal brand business. Michael's the perfect example of what it means. He's the embodiment, quite frankly, of a personal brand entrepreneur, because, he had the experience, he had done his time, he'd earned his stripes in the publishing world for, over a couple of decades with Thomas Nelson, was writing a blog at the same time as running that business, and built up this blog following for him. And then slowly but surely, it got to the point where he would release a few ebooks, and then I think he had an audio course maybe as well in the early days. And he realized, what, this actually, I can actually touch more people this way. I think I can help more people this way. And when his time, came to an end at Thomas Nelson, he decided to throw himself into serving his online community via michaelhyatt.com. And now, obviously, he's built a very, very profitable business based around his leadership skills, his publishing background, and what he stands for as a human being. And I've got a lot of respect for anybody that does that, and also actually does it with so much class and so much professionalism around them as well. So, on the two ends of the spectrum there, you've got Gary, the potty mouth, hardcore new age kind of for the millennial type of entrepreneur. And then you've got Michael, who, is more old school, a little bit more fundamental in the way that he approaches things, serving a very different audience. They've both got their own thing, and they've both used their own vibe to attract their own tribes. And I think that's the important thing to take away.
Yeah, and the fascinating part about a personal brand is that through what you put out into the world, whether it's content or, just your voice, your expertise, you do attract the right people. And more importantly, there's enough for everyone. Going back to what we were talking about before, where, there's nothing new under the sun. So if I'm going to be a coach and you're a coach, and, there's 1,000 other coaches, then how am I going to build a business as a coach, right? But the point of it is that however it is that we show up in the world, from a content perspective, whether that's social media, blogging, a book, doing a live show, whatever it is how we attract people to us. And those that are attracted to me, or those that are attracted to Chris, or those that are attracted to Gary V or Michael Hyatt or anybody else who has a personal brand, we're not everybody's cup of tea. Right? I mean, somebody that would be attracted to Gary Vee wouldn't be attracted to me, perhaps, and vice versa. So that's the value, honestly, of a personal brand. Is it takes, in my opinion, the willingness to step up and lead with a servant-based heart, and then have that begs the next question. How do you get started? Like if you're interested and you want to build a personal brand, where do you start with this? Do you start with a website? Do you create content? Do you, what does that look like without scaring
all
everybody?
of the above, all of the above. You got to do all the work all at once, right? I mean, I think before the website and, the YouTube channel and the podcast and the blog and the email newsletter and all that kind of stuff, which, by the way, is all needed. It is all important to get involved with. I mean, you're a perfect example of somebody who works hard to serve their people. You've got to do all that stuff. Yes, you do. But at the very core, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you are good at and what you can help people with, then you can't build a successful business based around your personal brand. That definition of who you are is more important foundationally than any other trick, tool, tactic, or resource that you can potentially get involved with. And I always say, it really honestly does come down to your strengths. Like, think about the things that you're very, very good at. Think about the times in your past where you've helped people out for one reason or another, obviously, based around a passion or something that other people are going to have interest in. And if you've been helpful in that regards, if you've provided some sort of answers to questions or solutions to problems, then that is a very, very good likely opportunity for you to be able to monetize that as a personal brand entrepreneur. And by the way, avoid your weaknesses, right? Like, walk away, turn the heck around from the weaknesses and walk away from them stat. Because people that say, oh, I'm going to spend some time working on my weaknesses. Don't do that. You're wasting time. You're wasting value. You're wasting impact. Don't spend time working on your weaknesses. Delegate the stuff that you're no good at and focus on the stuff where you can really show up and serve your people. And that's your strengths. So that at the core of it, that's really what a personal brand business is at the very foundational core. It's what you're good at and what you enjoy doing.
And then you have to show up in that lane, if you will. And I would suggest, if you're just starting, that you don't necessarily have to do it all. Although, none of us start doing it all. Like, for example, blogging was probably where I started. I would suggest, I'm just thinking forward a little bit. Was that probably where you started too, Chris? So,
without a doubt, I started blogging, and then I was podcasting, and then I was doing video. But they're all involved in the ecosystem now. But I would say just find one thing that you really enjoy doing, that you can show up consistently on. That might be YouTube, it might just be Instagram, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just show up consistently over and over and over again.
And one thing that I think is such a brilliant opportunity right now for those who will, kick the fear factor to the curb, is a live show, because it gives you an opportunity to build your entire platform. You could transcribe your live shows and have blog content from it. Hint, hint. You could pull the audio off and have a podcast. Hint, hint, hint. You would also have the video component, which is the fastest path to the know, like, and trust factor. Because people get a sense of who you are, what you're about, very quickly. So it builds community, your tribe, if you will, much faster as well. So pick one thing for sure, something you can, like you said, Chris, consistency is probably the most important thing. And then just start there. I'm an evolution. Most entrepreneurs are an evolution. They did not start at the top of the pile. They just evolved. They pivoted. Like I sometimes say, I think I pivot every day. And then you just go forward from there. So what is the number one pitfall that you should avoid when you're building out a personal brand? Like, just from your own experience, like if you think back and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd never done that. What would be one thing you would tell people to just don't go there?
Well, I think the big issue is that we want to be something to everyone. And there lies the big problem. And you've got to niche down. Although I know a lot of your people are in America, so I'll say niche down. But you've got to niche down. You've got to get to the point where you don't want to be known as the online business coach, for example, or the social media business coach. You don't want to be known as that. What you want to be known as is somebody that is several gradients down in that funnel, so to speak, right? So instead of saying I'm a social media consultant, why don't you just say I help small businesses crush it on Instagram? And that's what you do day in, day out. You see how I went broad to begin with and then niched things right the way down. When we opened the doors, I made this very mistake when we opened the doors to Youpreneur Academy back in 2015, which is our membership, monthly membership. We were basically saying, look, if you want to build an online business, the Youpreneur Academy is the community for you. And we had everybody from obviously personal brand people come in. We had affiliate marketers, we had Amazon resellers, we had every conceivable niche that you can think of online business owners was in there. And because of that, the conversations that would take place were extremely disjointed. Not only that, it was causing us problems from a content creation perspective in regards to showing up in training material, because we couldn't do something about Amazon resellers one month because the other 90% of the people that are in there not doing it wouldn't get any value out of it. Likewise, we couldn't do something on public speaking because the 90% of the people that were not public speakers wouldn't get any value from it. So it took us about 18 months and a couple of reiterations of the brand as a whole to figure that, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on personal brand business models. That's it. And there's 4 or 5 main pillars. It is obviously, creating online content. It's coaching in some way, shape or form. It's, digital content in some way, shape or form. It's writing a book. It's speaking on stages. There's 4 or 5 main core aspects of building that type of business. And now everything we create content wise is based around there. So that's the one big, huge mistake that people make, is going in too broad and not niching down. And when you niche down, not only do you attract the right people into the ecosystem, but also it makes it a lot easier for you to do that because your messaging can become that much more specific as well.
Such a great answer. So I just would like to say I'm that person who did exactly what you just said not to do. Because when I first started in the social media space, I was like, okay, if I'm going to be doing social media for other people, I need to be, I need to be broad. I need to have community in all these places. And it's been a double-edged sword for sure. I was able to build fairly large communities on most social platforms, but the problem came in from the perspective of like speaking opportunities, for example. Well, what are you known for? Like, if I was an Instagram expert, people would be hiring me to speak about Instagram. Or if I was known, then there would be others that would be known for like certain things. And I would argue that I was probably more of an expert based on things I was doing on the platform, mm-hmm. right? I was doing, totally. All these other things, but yet they had billed themselves as an expert and therefore they were, right? So it's a huge double-edged sword. And I am in total agreement with you, Chris, on that it is the riches are in the niches. I say niches too. So niche, whichever one you want to say. But I think that's such an important concept when you're trying to build out your personal brand or any business model for that point. You got to know who your person is. There's two ways. So it looks like Dee Dee is saying, I found my audience by finding someone just like me. I love me and want to work with someone like me. So I agree with that. So
Dee Dee is like my new favorite person on the planet. I need to like travel around with Dee Dee because she gets it completely, 100%.
Yes. I've often said my ideal client is a previous version of me. So as I'm trying to build out this next brand, because I've struggled with this for years, this exact thing, I'm going to really speak to my person, somebody like me, somebody, a previous version of myself is who my person is going to be. So really wanted to shout out from the rooftops that's such an amazing answer, and don't do it. Don't make the same mistake I've made.
I will say also to add into that, you're bang on the money, by the way, by saying that it's that previous version of you. But to add into that and caveat just slightly, you don't necessarily, I might get a little, a little bit of flack here in the comments, which I'll read back when we're done. But you don't necessarily want to attract complete beginner versions of you. Let me put my business hat on for a minute here, because the complete business, or rather the complete beginner versions of you, if you think back, had no money, right? And because of that, obviously, they're going to be sucking a lot of your impact, a lot of your time, a lot of your energy, and never actually get to the point of becoming a customer, or at least sometime soon. Anyway, what we want to be trying to do is trying to attract people that are us, yes, but only 2 or 3 clicks away, or 2 or 3 clicks ago, not 10 or 15 clicks ago, if that makes sense. Like, there's so much free, amazing content out there for beginners. You can leave that alone. You don't need to worry about that content. People will find it on their own. What you want to do is serve people when they're 2 or 3 clicks up from beginner status, because at the end of the day, that's where they're already making a little bit of money, and quite frankly, you can serve them a lot better that way as well.
Well, certainly at a faster clip. That's been my struggle always, because like previous version of me, like day one, like didn't even know, that was like almost 30 years ago. Yeah, I'm that old. But I had no idea I could even cut and paste. So trying to think about it from in that lens of, wanting to make sure that the person that you do help, you can help at a faster rate. You have more impact, to Chris's point, faster than you would if you had to bring them along. And sometimes I have this, and I'm going to have this Google that. I hesitate to say the word, but stuff. There's a 4-letter word for it too. Google that, because
right.
Sometimes it's like, guys, just Google it. It's not that hard, yeah. But yet at the same time, you want to be helpful. It's just it's a struggle. So going back to the question that I planted earlier, which was one of my core questions, was, can you build a personal brand and a business brand simultaneously? That's kind of a part of it, because you're doing it for sure. But going back to the question that I seeded before, which was, why did you choose to build Youpreneur when you already had a very thriving personal brand and you didn't bring that piece under your personal brand? I'm just curious about that, because they are 2 entities on top of a very successful business you already had. So.
Yeah, so I'm just a big believer that once you've got your thing down, whatever it is, once you've realized what it is and how you can help the most amount of people, and that happened to me many years ago, you have to be realistic about the fact that also that, there are not going to be people, although deep down they probably do want to do business with other people, individuals. A lot of people will actually see more stability and have more instant confidence in people and offerings if they're done under a brand name, quite frankly. So the whole kind of focus of shifting from chrisducker.com, and by the way, I've never really shifted from it. It's still there. And in fact, we're going through a complete redesign on the website right now, which will be live very, very soon. So it's not like I've taken my focus off it. It's still there. But the focus went on to Youpreneur and building that out as a brand twofold. Number one, to attract those type of people that could ultimately want to work with a brand rather than an individual, even though the individual was very much running the show. And then secondly, it's much harder to build, or rather to sell, a personal brand business than it is a brand-based business, right? So I don't know whether this is going to be something I want to do in 10 or 15 years from now. Right now, it certainly is. But if I've got all this collateral, if I've got an annual conference, if I've got books, if I've got online courses, if I've got coaching programs and frameworks out there, if I've got a whole bunch of people teaching those frameworks to other people out there, and I want to ultimately sell up, it's going to be a lot tougher to convince somebody to acquire Chris Ducker than it is to acquire Youpreneur. So I'm not building it to sell it. Genuinely, I'm not. But what I am saying is that if I wanted to ultimately get rid of it as a business arm at some point in the future, it would be a lot easier to do it under a brand name than it would be under a personal name. And that's something, it's realistic. You've got to be very realistic about it all. But to your point, I have 3 different businesses that I run around my personal brand. There's Live to Sell, which is our large B2B call center. There's Virtual Staff Finder, the VA recruitment hub. And then there's everything Youpreneur. They're 3 very, very different entities. They all have different P&L statements and different teams and management, but I am the conduit that ultimately keeps them all together.
And you're also the leveraging the power of your personal brand has funneled business in all of those directions, which is, I think,
Absolutely.
is so incredibly powerful. I've often said when people ask me, should you have a personal brand or should you build a business brand? And I really am a huge proponent of personal brands myself, just by my own experience with it. But I also share that, it is hard. The only real I would say con, if you will, for a personal brand is that it is difficult to sell. It's difficult to exit out of a personal brand because you can't sell you. And if you do, because I actually investigated this when we were trying to exit out of Boom Social, even though we had a brand, a separate business, they wanted, because I was the face of that brand, they wanted me to go with that brand, that sale, with that sale, which meant that 2 years of my time, my life would have been sucked down into that sale, and it wasn't worth it for me. I actually turned away from, multiple 7 figures because I didn't want to tie up 2 years of my time. So that is a con. But I love how Chris has done it, where he's leveraged his personal brand to build out other business brands. And to his point, he has no intention of selling them, but if he wanted to, he could. And that's something that I think is a powerful byproduct, if you will, of a personal brand too. So last but not least, how do you market a personal brand? Because I know a lot of people sometimes get a little.
Go on, you were going to say, Kim. I'm curious to know what your follow-up was.
I was just going to say that I think sometimes people, because it's them personally, they get a little fearful of coming across super salesy, or, how do you put yourself out there if you're a personal brand and ask for that sale?
You know what? Just you market a personal brand by being you all the time. I want to go back to one of my earlier comments of being uniquely and unapologetically you. I need to get that on a t-shirt, actually, because I stand by it 120%. Here's the thing, is that the whole know, like, and trust thing, it still works, but I want to put a little bit of a spin on it and say that it's actually not quite enough anymore. I think you have to be known, loved, and trusted. It's not about like anymore. You've got to be loved, man. You've got to be somebody's favorite. You've got to be somebody's favorite live show host, or somebody's favorite podcast, or somebody's favorite YouTuber, or somebody's favorite business coach, whatever it is. You've got to be somebody's favorite. And if you do that well enough, by showing up consistently, by answering questions consistently, providing value, providing solutions to problems through the products and the services that you create. If you do all of those things and you show up with intentional contemplation built into everything that you do doing things for the right reasons, for the long term. If you do that, actually the sales that you need as a business owner will happen all by themselves. Sure, you can come up with promotions and launches and opportunities and all that sort of type of thing. But if you've done all that, the sales process hasn't actually changed for a gazillion years. That's a real thing, gazillion years, right? It hasn't changed all that much. You prospect, you qualify, and then you go through the rest of that sales process, right? You handle objections, you go for the close, you handle more objections, so on and so on and so on. But too many people, they're scared of the close. They don't want to ask for the sale. Well, if that's the case, just do everything else brilliantly and perfectly right the way down to the close. And 9 times out of 10, with a personal brand business model, that close will actually happen all by itself because of the fact that you've intentionally shown up over and over and over again. So that's what you got to do. You got to show up.
I love that. And I loved what you said about the fact that people, you have to be somebody's favorite. You know, I've always said you have to matter. You know, there's so much stuff out there today. So people are paying attention to things that matter to them. And if you don't matter, well, nobody's going to show, you're not going to get their attention. Right. And I've also said, serve, don't sell. You know, so many people get so wrapped up in, oh, how do I sell? How do I sell? How do I sell? Just, you know, show up consistently, like Chris said, give value, deliver value, and the sales happen as a byproduct of that. It works. I know when I first started, I had that same struggle, like just finding my voice was a struggle for me initially. Is like, well, what do I say? Like, you know, think about it from the perspective of what would you say if you were just sitting in front of somebody, one person, you know, who do you care about that you would like to help? Talk to that one person. You know, whether it's when you post something on social media or whether you go live and talk to, you know, potentially 100 people or whatever it is, just think about the one person. And as long as you show up and you have I think a real servant-based heart that you want to make a difference, you're here to help, the sales happen. It's like
and understand
magical
also, you know, don't start getting to the point where you are comparing somebody else's 100th step with your third or your fourth, right? Don't allow that imposter syndrome thing to creep in, because just because they've been there and done it and they're already ahead of you, it doesn't mean that they're any better than you. They just got a head start on you. That's all it is. So don't compare yourself with other people and how far along in the journey. You do your own journey and keep your eyes on that prize, because ultimately there's only one person that can derail you on the way to your destination at the end of the day. And it is you. It's not other people. It's not competitors. It's not a crisis. It's not circumstance. It's actually you, because a lot of it goes on right here. It's between your ears.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. So as we are picking the winners for today's the giveaways that we are running today, all the little giveaways. So do we have any questions of Chris? And I also want to ask Chris, where can everybody connect with you? What's the best way that if somebody that's listening today or even on the replay, hey, I need to check out Chris. If you don't know him, where can they find you?
Well, real quick, easy place to get me for a question is Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Chris Ducker. That's the one platform that I have chosen to interact with my tribe as much as I possibly can day to day. So hit me up in the DMs, hit me up on a follow on Instagram. I'd love to welcome everybody. YouTube is a big focus for me as well this year. Lots of video content going up on YouTube, but ultimately it all comes down to chrisducker.com. Like I said, I'm the conduit. I'm stuck right there in the middle of everything. You go there and you'll be able to find everything else very, very easily.
I love it. I love it. And definitely tune in. Guys, both of his books are amazing. If you don't have them, hopefully somebody will be winning one of the books today. But if you don't have them, you can go check them out. Virtual Freedom is one. And the Youpreneur, what was the complete title? The Youpreneur.
Rise of the Youpreneur.
The Rise of the Youpreneur. I couldn't think. I wanted to put there was a word after it instead of the words before. So, such a great question Nancy has. Can you build a personal brand while also having an LLC under your company name?
Absolutely. We've already answered that, Nancy.
Yeah.
You're a smarty pants, aren't you? Yeah. You can totally do it. Absolutely.
Okay, so easel winner number 1 is Maggie Moore. Hey, Maggie, if you will send us your email address, I see you're on Facebook. If you just click the message button up in the corner there and send us a quick message. Then Colleen Teresa McSpirit also is a easel.com winner. Easel is sponsoring today's show, guys. They're amazing. If you haven't checked them out, definitely do so. Especially if you are looking to create fast content. And then we have Monica Widmer. Again, if the 3 of you will please send me your email address, we'll get you set up. Lickety split. All right. And then we have the book winner, Karen. I'm so glad you won the book. So Karen Kane Fox, she's a frequent viewer here. She's been in my community a long time. I'm super excited that you won the book. Awesome. And we just have 2 other giveaways and we'll get that knocked out. So it's coming. They're coming. Oh, good. Thank you, Patty. So if you guys would just quickly just drop in what was your biggest takeaway. I know we're doing aha moments, but I would also love to know, and I think this would be very value-based, not just from me, but also Chris. And then we have Rickard, I hope I said that correctly. Any advice for focusing on U.S. versus international? You've got both layers of experience in numerous countries. So thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is actually a very, very good question. I think ultimately, if your language that you're doing everything in is English, don't worry about it all that much, because both US and international territories will also be able to consume everything that you're creating, right? We actually made a very, very clear decision a few years ago to write in Americanized English, even though I'm a Brit, in everything that we do online. So if you go to any of our websites, you'll see unless they're very specifically created for the UK market, maybe we're doing a masterclass or an event or something just to UK business owners, which is rare, but maybe we are, then we'll go pure British English on that. But ultimately, everything we do is Americanized English because 65% of our web traffic is from America. It's that simple. So we make those calls based on the data that that comes our way. I will say though, if you're in a foreign language, I had a client a few years ago now who was based in Germany, and everything he did in English, he was also doing in German and vice versa, which included videos, blog posts, podcasts as well. So he had everything like doubled up, and it was creating a massive amount of work for him, as well as obviously putting a lot of pressure on him in terms of marketing, right? So when we sat down, I said to him, like, well, where, you don't want to travel internationally. You've got a young family. You've been honest with that. You're based out of Berlin. Where do you, what do you want to do? Well, what I really want to do is speak on stages at big corporate events here in Germany. And I want to, serve leadership clients here in Germany. I said, well, stop writing and creating any content in English. It's that simple. Just do everything in German, which he did. And within 18 months, he had a #1 best-selling book in Germany. He had a #1 podcast in Germany. And he was booked up to the yin-yang for speaking events. Guess where? In Germany. So ultimately, it really comes down to just kind of picking what you want to do. But like I said, if your first kind of call to action in terms of creating content is going to be in English, then don't worry about US international. Just do your thing. Everybody's going to pick it up anyway.
Yeah, and there's the moral to that story too, is that there's niches in there in that scenario too, where you had to niche down to a language. So sometimes you just have to make a decision on that. So I know we had the little webcam cover, and then Dahlia is the ring light winner. So I'm so glad, Dahlia, that you won. If those of you who want a physical product, if you will send us like the book and these 2 little things, we'll need a mailing address for that. So if you click on the send message there, if you're here on Facebook, just shoot us your mailing address and we will get those right out to you. All right. So any last minute questions, guys? I'm so excited that we've had Chris to join us today. You've been amazing. I thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible wisdom with my peeps. I'm super excited that you said yes. And if there's ever anything we can do as a whole, I say I'm volunteering everybody. If we can do anything to help you, let us know.
That's good. That's good. Well, look,
See, I'm
it was
committing all
my
y'all out there.
sincere pleasure. It was my
Yeah,
sincere
I
pleasure
appreciate it.
to come and spend some time with you.
All right. Well, guys, as always, super thankful for each and every one of you guys. Stay safe, stay inside as much as it makes sense, and God bless. We'll see you later today. I'm on one more time today at 3 p.m. So hopefully you can join me then, and we'll see you later. Take care. God bless.